Hi, I'm Alex. This is Pucksandpaperbacks, where I love to shout about queer and trans books. Today, I am sharing the 7 books that I read in March. First, I have a couple announcements. I am taking personalized book recommendations over on Bindery. Become a free or paid member. Click the button at the top of my page that says Get a Rec. Fill out the form. I'll be making a video next week where I answer your requests. Speaking of Bindery, I'm also doing a seasonal readathon. It is April 17th to the 21st, Friday to Monday. Friday, I'm doing sprints. We have so much fun doing this. I will be posting a bingo card soon. When you become a member on Bindery, you have access to my Discord. So this is all through Discord. We do a weekend readathon where we read. My only rule is to read a book with queer rep or by a BIPOC author. I want to make sure that we are reading diversely. That's happening, and it's all in Discord if you would like to join us. March was a better reading month for me. I had some highs and lows, but for the most part, I enjoy the books that I read. At the beginning of March, I finished The Beautiful Something Else by Alder van Otterloo. I read this for my episode of TBR Tackle, which will be linked down below. I will give you a brief rundown of this, but I explain more in that vlog. This was such a sweet, emotional, and heartwarming middle grade. We follow Sparrow, a non-binary kid, whose mother is unfit to parent at the moment, so she needs extra help. One day, Sparrow is pulled out of school and goes to live with their Aunt Mags. They are terrified. This is a new change. They want to be there for their mom, and they don't even know who Aunt Mags is. They've heard things from their mother about her family and that they're bad. So Sparrow feels that they are in a bad spot. They shouldn't be here. Later on, they learn that Aunt Mags is really supportive. She's a trans woman and she really gets Sparrow. Definitely one of my favorite characters. This also talks about botany, which was interesting. We also have insects. I forgot to mention in my vlog, but this is actually written in essays. It's science homework, and it's from different ages of Sparrow's life. And we learn about different insects and nature. This was so well done. I love Alder. I'm so glad that I was able to read this. I don't read middle grade as much anymore, so it is a treat when I get to read it. Content warnings for allusions to gender dysphoria, dead naming on page, which is challenged, misgendering on page, also challenged, minor homophobia and transphobia, this is internalized thoughts and comments, a minor car accident scene, depictions of addiction and drug use, mentions of emotional, physical, and verbal child abuse in the past. Next, I did another episode of Trope Taste Test in March. This was testing out Friends to Lovers. Definitely go and check out that video if you want more thoughts and to know if I like Friends to Lovers or if I am just never gonna read a Friends to Lovers book again. First, I read Melt My Heart by Bethany Rutter. This was a book that I had started twice and never finished, but I am so glad that I pushed through and read it because I enjoyed it. This is a summer romance set in England. It is set in Sussex, I believe. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. We follow Lily, who is having the best summer before she goes to university. She's working with her best friend Cassie at Cassie's family's ice cream stand, and she plans to discover herself and have the best summer ever. She's always felt that she's been in her sister Daisy's shadow. Daisy is skinny, boys like her, and she is very social, whereas Lily is fat and she's always felt ostracized. This was such a light and liberating story. It shows a fat character experiencing joy. She meets a boy at the pub who she ends up having a summer fling with. This was really fun. I love a coming of age story where a character is discovering their sexuality, and in this case, she learns that she has feelings for her best friend Cassie. Although it is joyous and light, it doesn't shy away from important issues like white nationalism and fascism. This was an ideal coming-of-age contemporary for me, and I enjoyed it. Content warnings for white nationalism, fascism, racism, biphobia, alcohol, fat-phobic comments, internalized fat phobia, sexual content, fade to black, anxiety, Panic Attack on Page, and Infidelity. Next, I read Two Rogues Make a Right by Sebastian. This was no plot, just vibes, friends to lovers romance between Will and Martin, who have been childhood best friends. Will kidnaps Martin when he finds out that he is ill and nurses him back to health. Literally one of my favorite tropes. But I wasn't a huge fan of this. I liked it, but there was nothing that was gravitating me to pick it up, which was such a shame. There's grumpy sunshine, lots of banter, and it's set in the 1800s Regency England. There were some things that I liked about this, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite Sebastian. Content warnings for PTSD, trauma, sexual content, terminal illness, addiction to opium in the past, and medical content. And the last book I read for Trope Taste Test was A Little Kissing Between Friends by Chencia C. Higgins. I read this on audiobook. The audio was phenomenal. I thoroughly enjoyed it. This had me in the first half, but the third act is what killed it for me. It was very lackluster. The characters did things that I didn't agree with. I love a messy queer. This was so messy. Lots of drama. I loved that part. I also loved the friends to lovers element. We had a lot of characterization and I enjoyed that, but I couldn't get past the end. The end did something for me that I wasn't happy with. That being said, I still enjoyed it. I was having so much fun reading this audiobook. It made me want to pick up more of her work, so I'm definitely gonna do that soon. It just wasn't my favorite. Content warnings for Death of a Parent in the Past, Biphobia, which is challenged, and sexual content on page. Next, I loosely participated in the Trans Rights Readathon, and I filmed a vlog where I tried to check off some prompts from my friend Reese's yearly trans reading challenge. That video will be linked down below as well. I read the graphic memoir Homebody by Theo Parish. I was thoroughly impressed by this. I had seen it around, people recommended it, but I am very wary of trans memoirs because I feel they're not always written for trans people. Usually it's for cis people to know what the trans experience is about. Therefore, it can be intense and triggering. That has happened to me in the past. But with this, I had a different experience. It was very euphoric. That is something I don't see a lot in trans memoirs, so this was really refreshing to read. Basically, this is a graphic memoir about Theo, a non-binary trans masked person, and it chronicles their life of realizing in college that they are non-binary. But it shows some things that have happened in childhood, things in teen years, up until college. Like I said, this was very euphoric. I also enjoyed the color scheme and illustrations. I am not the best person to describe what that's like, but it did have some purple, and then we had blue and pink to represent the trans colors. Overall, I enjoyed this. Content warnings for misgendering and dead naming and gender dysphoria. Next, I read an anticipated release, Someone to Daydream About by Sydney Langford. I was gifted a copy by the publisher Macmillan and Toppling Stacks Tours. I made a whole video about it, sharing the 5 reasons you should read it, so I'll link it down below. This is inspired by the DCOM Starstruck, following Natalie, a deaf girl who has a deaf center that she runs. It was her late father's. Her and her sister have dreams to make the center better, have classes, and have a space for deaf kids to come and feel represented and make it a safe space for them and their families. At the center, she teaches ASL to kids and families. One of her clients is the sister of the pop star Felix Song. He's in the boy band Daydream. When the Song family proposes for her to go on tour and help Felix with his ASL to teach him because his sister Ava is losing her hearing and is going to be completely deaf. Of course she doesn't want to do this. She hates Felix so much, and the last thing she wants to do is go on a tour with a bunch of boys and be in the spotlight. She wants to be with her family and continue to build up the center and teach ASL. When an ultimatum is presented with a lot of money, she can't say no. So Natalie goes on tour with the Boys of Daydream. This has a bunch of ASL disability rep. We also have demi-romantic and pansexual rep. Natalie is demi-romantic and Felix is pansexual. if you've been in fandom spaces, were a One Direction or 5 Seconds of Summer fan like I was, this is a love letter to fandom culture and stan culture. I love when a boy band book discusses the music industry. This book specifically talks about how young boys are exploited by the music industry, especially when it comes to boy bands. There's a lot of that going on here. Of course, we also have an enemies to lovers romance. Take that with a grain of salt because we do have Natalie who hates Felix. She doesn't want to be around him and is just doing this for the money. I forgot to add, Felix is dyslexic and he has dysgraphia. And to teach him ASL, but she hates his guts. Of course, she learned what quality she does like in him and starts to bond with him more as they are going on a US tour. I personally love a boy band book as somebody who was a big fan of One Direction and Five Sauce, but my original boy band was Dream Street. If you know, you know. My only gripe with this book is that the mother-daughter relationship was not fleshed out enough. We have a lot of emotional abuse happening from Natalie's mother, and it is just resolved very quickly at the end, and I think that it wasn't done well. I wish that it had been more fleshed out because her mom is very emotionally abusive. She shuts her daughter out, and I just felt like we needed more of a big moment there and more closure. I devoured this. It was such a fun read. It is a page turner. Highly recommend. Content warnings for classism, ableism, internalized end comments, grief, death of a parent in the past, cancer and medical content in the past, misogyny, sexism, emotional and verbal abuse on page, and a strained mother-daughter relationship. And last is my best book of the year, and They Were Roommates by Paige Powers. I filmed my whole reaction of this in that vlog where I read trans books for a week. I am so glad I read this because I ate it up. This is definitely not for everybody, but it was for me. It had everything that I wanted in a book. Basically, we follow Charlie, who is a trans boy. He is recently transitioned socially and medically. He attends an all-boys school, St. Valentine Academy, and he ends up roomed with a boy that he dated 2 years ago when he was presenting as a girl. His name is Jasper. He's pretentious. He is a poetry snob. He thinks that his poetry is the best, even though it is literally terrible. He thinks everybody is below him. He's insufferable. But I think you will love him or hate him. I definitely grew to love him, even though there were some things that I was like, okay, get over it. But he reminded me of people that I knew in high school. You probably knew somebody like Jasper, therefore I couldn't really dislike him because I knew exactly what his purpose was and who he was probably portrayed after. I liked seeing them bond, and this was very light. I will say it was probably unrealistic, but this is a YA fiction that was clearly written for trans kids to read. It is a second chance romance. We have roommates, forced proximity. I loved seeing Charlie bond with the other cis guys. It's nice to feel like you fit in with the other guys. I just adored this. It was such a good book. In the vlog, I mention if you like She's the Man and you've been wanting a She's the Man trans book, this is it. It does not say that, it's not marketed as that, so don't take that as it being word for word, but there are certain things in the book that reminded me of She's the Man. Of course, go and check out that vlog for all of my thoughts. I was so taken back by the comments on that vlog, so thank you if you commented and watched it. I really appreciate it. There were so many comments of people saying that they were going to pick that book up very soon and even requested a hold at their library. Content warnings for minor internalized transphobia, lying, classism, and gender/body dysphoria. Those are all of the books that I read. I will mention I did choose to DNF Family Lore, which was a book that I read for my book club, but I ended up DNFing it. Didn't read it in March. I was going to try and read it like a couple of days after and just like fit it into this wrap up, but I chose to DNF it. It's very close to home for me at the moment, so I wasn't really in the headspace for it. I also just wasn't connecting to it. I have seen mixed reviews about it, so the book that I am using for my book club book is The Beautiful Something Else. In March, for my book club, it is a themed book club through my Discord. If you are a member of my Bindery or Patreon and you have access to Discord, you are in our book club. I have a theme for each month. April's theme is nature. March's theme was family, and I would say that this talked a lot about generational issues and chosen family, having rifts in family, family drama, etc. So I have chosen this for my book club pick. Those were the 7 books that I read in March. How did your March go? Did you find a favorite or was it lackluster? Let's talk in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and leave a comment. It helps me out so much. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Alex. I'm a trans man who loves to uplift queer and trans books. So if you're into that, hit subscribe. Thank you to my top members on Patreon and Bindery for your support this month. I appreciate you. If you want to join us for our readathon, book club, etc., the Bindery link is down below. If you'd like to watch more, YouTube suggests this video and you can subscribe there. Bye.